let's just dive right in. We're back in Wonderland Point. It's my lovely theme park. We're based in the UK, sort of on a universal budget, and we're currently making a Viking land, where last week we've made this lovely spinning coaster, and this week we're theming it up so it looks all pretty. But to make it look all pretty, I'm going to need a cohesive theme, and my theme is, well, is interesting to say the least. So, jumping back in time now, here's the Cavern Tavern. So I'm sort of like halfway through at this point, and the Cavern Tavern's taken shape because it's the quick service restaurant of the area. And what's coming up is, I'm just going to talk you through where I'm at, and then we'll jump forward in time and we'll get to there anyway. So inside this building, I need to contain what is the photo unit, because you've got to exit via the gift shop, because I've got to make my money somehow, don't I? And inside, well, behind that is then the actual quick service restaurant. So in here we'll be selling drinks and some food, probably sort of quick service. It's not an actual restaurant yet. For me, that's not come out yet as an update, but it probably will be by the time this video is up. Not sure. I think it's around then anyway. So the Cavern Tavern, fantastic name by the way. I'm absolutely loving the name. It's stupid, but it just entertains me every time I see it. It's themed off of like the Isle of Berk, so you've got the big hills and stuff. And then behind the Cavern Tavern, you've got the roller coaster, and the roller coaster is going to be themed around bringing barrels of mead to the Cavern Tavern, because it's going to pick stuff up from that windmill over there where they've probably brewed the mead, and then it gets transported back to the Cavern Tavern via the barrels on the roller coaster, and might even bring the occasional customer with him too. So that's the idea of the ride. I thought it was sort of quirky enough to fit in with a Viking land. Also, it's not run-of-the-mill, there's a flying dragon, which I think is a bit cliche. I don't want cliche, I want weird. So that's my weird theme. And it sort of ties in with the village on the hill. This is coming up next week, by the way, if you're curious in what that crazy rock work is. But I tried to get a sort of a thing to go up there. It didn't really tie in, so I just left it. But the Cavern Tavern's looking lovely. The station will be sort of on the back of that building. It's going to be an open station still, because a full-on building, it's too much for the ride, I think. They're going to spend so much on woodwork and these fiberglass rocks that they had no money left for the station. So it's just going to be a simple cover and probably some Viking banners, because that's the main way to say Viking. In front of the station there's going to be the lift hill. I was theming this a bit off of Baron 18, whatever its name is, at Efteling. It said Efteling, where it's got this lovely sort of ironwork lattice structure for its steampunk with a big spinny cog thing at the top. I want a Viking-y version of that, so loads of wood and rope, and what I want it to be is, instead of the spinny thing, I want this rock, and I want this rock to sort of fall down, and that insinuates that it's powering these barrels up the lift hill before being thrown around the circuit, and I think that'll look very nice, if I can pull it off, that is. But moving on round the circuit, I have the big I'm going to call it the no-banked turn that is classic of these sorts of rides. If I can position my camera properly, there we are. And so this no-banked turn, it's the focal. It doesn't need a theming element, so I just want the queue to sort of go around it, give it a load of good views, so you're in the queue line getting really excited to ride the ride, and keeps the kids entertained who are waiting for it most likely. And then past that, we can move up to a more themed area, like the first mid-course brake run. So the game just spawns in the catwalk in the middle of the air and has no way of getting to it, so I've added in some ladders and themed it up to be a bit more wooden and Viking-y, with a bit more of a support structure beneath it, and given that sort of access route in case you ever did get stuck and had to be evacuated. And then behind that, because it ties in with the structure, is my proof of concept, which was the first thing I built actually, was this little lift hill to prove that the barrel idea can be get on across. So where I've got the coggy things at the top, which pull the rope, which pull the barrels, which get flung off the top. So I want you to fly in down at the bottom, and you can see the channel next to you, which is used for more barrels, and so it gets across to you that you're just a barrel in this big sort of Viking machine before you get flung off the top, which sends you through the sort of I don't know what to call this bit, but you just get flung down some sort of channel. And but anyway, back to the mid-course brake run. I didn't want the ride to be this fully tracked thing, otherwise I would have made it out of wood. I want it to be more that you're being flung around. It's just being barrels chucked through the air, over your heads, and that's why they're sort of spinning and wildly out of control. So I want the mid-course brake run to be sort of like this landing pad from that first throw, before you then bounce down onto this wooden panel and then onto the sort of ropey mesh before being flung round the windmill and then being hoisted up some different bit and then flung underneath the path, etc., up to the lift hill that we just looked at. But part of that made me think it would be fantastic if a barrel got stuck, and that's what that one's there for. I think it's just a fun little detail that I want to include, because they would do. No throw's perfect, and they would get stuck. Although, hopefully none with the riders, because that would be very bad for the park's PR. Anyway, moving on from that little section, we've got the farmland bit, which I find Viking can tend to get a little bit samey in Planet Coaster, and it's got all these farm pieces, so I thought, well, let's have this farm section so it's not all just this like fort. I guess that's what it's going for, a little fort around the bay, but then outside the little walls we've got this lovely farm section, so that's what you're seeing me build here and filling in that awful green space that I had. It just needs foliage, I think. They wouldn't go wasting a load of money theming it up, because most people can't see it because of the fence, and the people on the ride are going pretty fast and spinning in all which direction, so it just needs to set the overall scene, I think. You can see it through the fence. I wanted to maintain the sight lines for that wooden fence with the little gaps in it, so if you're a kid you can stand on the path and look in and watch this coaster fly past you, but you're not going to spend all day there. You're going to spend a few minutes just watching it go around, so it doesn't need much, just needs the lovely foliage. How I approach foliage is really just keep throwing down the same bushes. I feel, whilst the foliage is vastly better than Planet Coaster 1, there's still some room for a bit more variety in bushes. I think the trees are fantastic, but bushes I feel are a little lacking. But that's my own personal opinion. Maybe others can think otherwise. But here I am just adding in some fencing. This mesh fencing would be used in areas where you don't really see. Just it's very functional and cheap, so that's what I've added in there. And it just can do a bit of sort of terrain painting and bits, just to make sure the whole area looks nice. It's a thing that some creators forget, but terrain painting is a massive help. And then what I'm creating here is some wooden structures just to keep telling that theme that you're being flung around. So I'm just adding in like a little pulley system to bring you to the top of the catwalk. And speaking of that catwalk, again, Planet Coaster 2 has decided that just that one little beam in the centre is enough to support it. And I can tell you for certain that it will not. It needs more of a support structure than just balancing like a seesaw. I'm actually a structural engineer, so this is my thing, and it's a bit of a bugbear, so I want to make sure that this catwalk would at least be able to sustain something. And it also needs access, so again, needs a ladder added in case you do ever get stuck there. Really, it wouldn't be a ladder, it needs to be more accessible than that with stairs, but building stairs in this game for that is a bit of a faff, so I went with a ladder. It was the easier option, and it doesn't. It sort of stops the structure having to be as big as it would otherwise be, so that's what I've done there. And I think overall I'm pretty happy with how this little farmland turns out. I haven't really done it before in Planet Coaster. In fact, I've barely used the Viking theme before this little theme park I started doing, and I'm loving it. It's a fantastic set, though. Basically, all I do is build wood. I'm clearly a secret carpenter in some other life. So, following up from that, here's the finished product, where I've just continued to tidy up the foliage really and add in fencing all the way around. But I didn't just do that for this little section, I've actually done it for the whole ride, and it is looking wonderful. If you just come like down here on the path, even though you're leaving the area, you still get little hints of it, and I just think that's fantastic. There's just the little hidden sight lines. Like, you'd walk through here, okay, the netting stopping the stuff hitting you, but it's still a cool view nonetheless. And then you come over the bridge, and yes, that is what I wanted. This imposing structure of things just flying and spinning around you. Ideal. So yeah, anyway, I'll continue with the fencing. added in some little planters, made sure that the ride area is safe, and well, with the plants, I think it just all brought it together, especially around here. This area looks... I know it's simply detailed for the park, but I just think the area looks just really, really great. And it's maintained that this is now framed, so when you're down here, it's not detracted from, but is still complemented by the background around it. I've also added in the queue line, which is just a load of cattle pens. I'm quite a fan of a cattle pen with weird arrangements. It's quite a Merlin thing, I think, where you just have one cattle pen which can be locked on and off, and then another, and then another. Particularly this one I'm a fan of. You've got the little roof just to stop things falling from above on you, but then I love how you'd get to this point in the ride thinking that you're almost at the station, only to discover that there's now more cattle pen, and then you come out of it and then there's another one. So you thought you were close, but nah, you're wrong, before you go up the stairs and into the station, which I haven't actually got to yet. Unfortunately I ran out of time, so that will be in a future episode. But then here is my structure, and I've got to go in where the rock falls and the car goes up, and then unfortunately, I have to have it, the rock comes back up. I didn't know how to do that with the various animatronic things, so I just had the simplest solution I could find. And I know I said I didn't want a big spinning wheel, but I thought that the big spinning wheel actually looks quite good, especially with the water, because the water ties it in with the other side, which I've started adding some fencing in for, but it's not quite done. But again, future episode on that one. I've also moved the photo booth thing, mostly because over here made the path feel really crowded. It stole space from the restaurant, and I just didn't like its placement. It also made this the slope down was just way too steep, so anyone in a wheelchair would have gone flying out into the lake. Can't have that. So I've shallowed that all off so it's a bit more usable and realistic, and just a bit better placement for the photos, because it will also allow the building to enclose the area behind to make that a bit better. But that's all I've got for this week. I'm afraid there will be more next week. I don't know if that's going to be finishing this ride off, or if we're going to move to my big dark ride, where I don't really have a name. I've got a working name, but I'm not sure I like it, so if you've got a name for that, drop a comment down below. Same with the barrel ride. Actually, I don't have a name for this, so before I add in the ride sign, I'm going to need a name. So if you've got any suggestions, drop them in the comments below. Also hit the like button. It really helps me to decide if this is the sort of video that people want, or if I should be making something else. But anyway, thank you very much for watching. I've been Showing That Game, and I'll see you next time.